For the next speaker, I request our Secretary Tuput Virpakshapa to escort our speaker Aditya Bajaj and present the movement. I present the floor wicket. It's a pleasure to introduce our speaker. Aditya Bajaj is a director in assurance at SR Bhartiboy and Associates LLP. With over 16 years of experience in auditing large entrepreneurial and multinational clients. A fellow accountant and company secretary, he holds a BCom from Goenka College of Commerce and an MCom from Annamalai University. Aditya specializes in audits across sectors such as technology, e-commerce, quick commerce, consumer products, hospitality, edutech and manufacturing, with strong expertise in Ind AS, IFRS, Indian GAAP and US GAAP. He is known for his ability to handle complex accounting matters and for building high-performance collaborative teams. With this brief introduction, I hand over the floor to you, sir.
One of the topic which is like ethics, which is like core for the CA foundation. If we talk ethics for a minute, ethics is values. And when it is associated with an individual, then as an individual, what are the values which we are carrying? Now, the subject matter is little connected, means when we say as a chartered accountant and when it is the whole 2-day, 1-day session is for peer review, then what we are talking about, are we going to have a session on morals, what we should do, what we should not do? And how this topic is so connected, though it is a foundation as a chartered accountant, because the society sees us with lot of respect. Any signature which we as a chartered accountant and that document goes in the market, the public put lot of trust on that. And how do we maintain that integrity to continue to have that trust of the society on the chartered accountants is becoming important. Now, peer review has established that, okay, as a CA member itself, let's first try to help each other. So, if a chartered accountant is missing out on certain topics or certain documentation in terms of auditing, but as a chartered accountant, whoever is doing a peer review has also required to help another fellow chartered accountant on the topic which we are going to cover as an ethics as well. So one fellow chartered accountant is subject to review by another chartered accountant, whether he is doing wrong on any ethical ground or somewhere he has like given away the independence by taking certain engagement or by doing anything wrong. So let's understand, this session would be, I would like to have more interactive, to have a more learning experience. And this is a very subjective topic. As an individual, as a peer reviewer, when you are going and doing those pieces, whether the other person is correct, that is also a fellow chartered accountant. How we can do that? But the best part is we don't have to go ahead with too much of professional judgment. ICI has came up with code of ethics. Now, code of ethics, do we say it's a philosophy? No, it's not a philosophy. It's a practical act, and it becomes so easier for us as a chartered accountant when we go and check that, because there is a practicability. If somebody says today, "Ki more or less I am ethically covered," so I have to say, there is no concept of grey in this subjective matter also when it comes to ICI code of ethics. Either I can say comfortably, yes, I am complied with code of ethics, or when as a reviewer, peer reviewer, when I am reviewing somebody's file, I can comfortably say, yes, he has met all the standards, ethical standards which are subscribed, which are prescribed by the ICI. He has met all the standards and he is good enough. Now, what are the consequences? Before we go into little more details, just wanted to understand, means take the subject, means we have code of ethics, we just told, code of ethics, schedules of the act. This is not the topic which is required to be covered. We just thought we will just brush through. There are 2 schedules and there are 39 sub-schedule clauses which are required as a professionally to cover ourselves. Then the peer review scope of ethical standards. What peer review asks because this code of ethics standards have been there from day one. Now it is again as a draft stage, it is again modified, it is again getting revised. Specifically for audit engagements, parts 4A and 4B of code of ethics, we need to see this part specifically. Then key themes of part B2, ethical requirements, and the major part which I would like to spend most of the time with you guys is filling the application form. I heard the earlier speaker has also spoken of form 1. So we can go through, these are the 3-pager form on ethics. This is an out of 29 pages, these are the 3 pages which every chartered accountant who is applying for a peer review certificate has to fill this. So we can go clause by clause and try to share the practical experience both from the standpoint of person who is filling the form or who is applying for the peer review certificate, as well as from the standpoint a person who is going to review another fellow chartered accountant peer review certificate, how is going to do that. Then we will also touch base on the key findings. What are the practical key findings which are coming up in a peer review from a regulatory standpoint currently? Any questions so far while we move ahead? Now, when we say code of ethics, we say ki the importance which should have been given so far to code of ethics has somewhere missing. I would rather sum it in that manner. Can't say ki not been given, but to a certain extent there has been a missing element. Coming to the today's world, where so much of our profession has gone into so much of regulatory scrutiny, and we are subject to so many reviews on daily basis. The print media, everything comes out in the print media, and public are looking into those pieces very closely, each and everything which is coming out in print media. The bar or the requirement of code of ethics has increased in the current scenario. Nowadays, nobody can afford to ignore code of ethics. I would rather term in that manner. With the increased use of e-commerce, I would say, or electronic documentation. Earlier, it was more of an hard copy file when there is a communication going on between one auditor to another auditor. Still, there was a scope. Okay, we can do this today in the paper world. But now the scenarios have changed. Last 5 years, and it started a decade back, last 5 years there has been an enormous increase in terms of e-documentation. Now in case of peer review itself, if you see, there is no single documentation which is going by a chartered accountant who is applying in paper form. Everything is email. And how it is being tracked is one email ID. From application to review to the conclusion and issuance of the final peer review report, it's only one email ID which is being used. Everything is in document form itself, which we are going to talk about. So the ask has increased for code of ethics. So vulnerability of our profession has increased, in terms of regulatory reviews, NAFRA coming into picture. So peer review board is further as a helping hand which has been extended by the ICI to each member to get benefit out of this. Tomorrow as we grow, we may get into a listed entity engagement as well. Now if we keep our basics correct, year on year there is an ask, okay, we will improve our audit quality, we will improve our audit standard. But at the same time, the basic, whatever is required has to be there at play. Now this code of ethics standard has been like kind of taking from the international standards. So, and again it keeps on modifying to align with the international standards. To whom it is applicable? It's only for the chartered accountant in practice, code of ethics. It's applicable to all, whether in service or whether in practice. Okay. This is more just I kept this slide as a breather to understand, okay, as a refresher before we get into the peer review. So we know there are like first schedule and second schedule, and altogether there are like 39 clauses. And what happens if we breach any of these clauses? And it starts with part A, the member in practice, whether we are sharing any fees of our work with others, are we going to solicit any work from the others and paying any commission directly or indirectly. So there are various things. What are the consequences? These are the only clauses as an ethical standpoint which we need to follow, or there are any other clauses also? So there are other clauses also as per the Companies Act which we need to abide by, and penal consequences is not only from the schedule but also as per the Companies Act if we look into. Just as a refresher, means practice by non-chartered accountant, sharing fees with non-member, accept fees from non-members, enters into partnership with non-members. These are all for misconducts which is for members in practice. Advertises professional attainment, means a lot of case studies are there in those cases. How we can do an advertisement to a minimal extent. The board of NCA can't be lit by LEDs and all. So a lot of case studies are there. Again, part 2, non-compliance of section 139. Engages in other occupation, very subjective matter. Is it my family business? Can I be there as a sleeping partner? Should be okay. Can I be just for the namesake as a director, but as a non-executive director in my family-run partnership firm or in the company per se? But can I get into an engagement activity where I start selling insurance, or I can advise the client in terms of okay, how as an individual or how as a company, which are the kind of policies which you should look for yourself, your employees who are working for you or for your family members. So again, lot of subjective matters in this, but if we have any specific question, then we can pause on this. Otherwise, I want to spend more time in terms of peer review, because this code of ethics from day one we have been looking into, we have been engaging into. Again, professional misconduct, members in service pays or allows or agree to pay any fees, commissions or all. Some of the members, like if I go back and see, FCA becomes publishing. When comes into peer review, so it starts with one of a misconduct which is listed in Schedule 2 as well. We start with filing Form 1, peer review. So any information, if we misrepresent ourselves or the firm, what is the consequence? Whether it would be a misconduct or not. So definitely it would be a misconduct. If we see part 2, provides false information to the institute and its different authorities. So it starts with that. So if we see while filling the form, one thing is very clear, whether we have implemented something or not implemented something, there is always a way to go ahead and implement that. But ethically, let's not write anything wrongdoing in the form. And certain examples in the whole form of 29 pages, when we see in the somewhere in first few pages it asks whether the firm is having a website or not. And then in the subsequent pages it further asks whether the website complies with all the ethical standards or not. So upside we have given no, and then coming below here itself we have said yes, because we have a tendency to say yes ethically wherever it is required we are all complied with. So there is a mismatch between the form itself. When as a person, as a peer review, when we are trying to get a certificate and trying to submit our form, if there is an inconsistency in our own form itself, then the reviewer will say it's an integrity issue at a first instance itself, and that would be the last thing which we should have, because this profession has been looked by the society with so much of respect, and we have the responsibility to continue and maintain this integrity. Now coming to peer review, I heard in the last session one of a fellow member has asked now whether the policies are okay. So reviewer, when it comes, he will just try to look the policies, but or something else also he is trying to justify. No. So he will definitely going to look into the implementation part. One is the policy and the framework which the company or the EU has maintained, which a chartered accountant firm has been maintaining, but how it is getting it implemented day to day, that is the reason the reviewer will pick up certain samples. I believe in the earlier session it has been discussed, minimum 10 samples for each type of engagement. They are going to pick at least one samples and all. And those samples when a reviewer is looking into, he will try to judge whether those policies which are in place have been practically implemented or not. So one way to say, okay, policy, we will take the institute template, because institute has came up with a lot of templates as well in that. One is peer review board website, you will get a lot of information. People just tend to, it's so easy to call a friend and ask, what are you doing? Arre, kya kar raha hai isme? But definitely if you go back and see the website, you yourself will get a lot of templates. Now for SQC1, the whole genesis of this peer review right now is like SQC1. Now this SQC1, the firm has also came out with a template and it is there on the website. If people try to download that template itself and try to understand and follow and implement that, it's like half of the policies and procedures are in place. Fundamental principle, integrity, objective, professional competence and do cares. Independence requirements conforms with part 4A and 4B of the code. We'll just spend a minute on this because this is important. 4A. 4A is for the assurance engagement. Applies to audits and review of financial statement. Key principle, independence in mind and appearance. Avoidance of relationship or circumstance that create threat to independence. So there are various threats which are there to independence. We'll speak in detail about that. What is unfamiliarity trait? What is a self-review trait? We'll speak for each in detail along with the form, because in form, first we need to understand those definitions. Okay, what do you mean by vulnerability threat? So we need to understand what this threat is actually talking about, and then we need to have a policies and procedures, how we are mitigating those threats in our firm. Then how we are communicating that to our employees. Whether the employees, the way in which has been communicated, they have listened to us and then they go back in their day-to-day life and implement those in practice. One thing is that today also when we talk about, okay, these are the rules, these are the procedures, we can talk about those. But the need is ki, okay, we imbibe those in our day-to-day affairs and go and implement them. Otherwise, listening 2-hour session or 3-hour session, okay, these are the acts which are required to be followed. These are the things which we should not do. But going back and imbibing that in our day-to-day life is one thing which now code of ethics is required, because the code of ethics was there from day one. Specific requirement. Now, prohibit financial interest in audit client. What do you mean by prohibited financial interest in audit client? Let's have a little more interactive. What we should not do. Okay. So there is something called like 1 lakh rupees of indebtedness we should not have, either side, neither this side. Restrictions on non-assurance services for audit clients. So this is one area which is going very harsh by any regulators. And now also if you see in US gaps also, when SEC as a regulator comes in, they don't spare any CA firm on a first instance if they find it independence as an issue. While doing an work, it's okay, we may have missed out one audit procedure on one particular account balance. But it comes into question, into integrity issue of the whole management group, managing group of that big firm or the small firm, if there is an independence requirement. I'm having 2 small firms, one in my name where I am doing, and one with my wife's name. The same firm is doing an internal audit and I am doing a statutory audit. So gone those days. Even now the NAFRA is going behind to lot of this on independence issue, and lot of big CA firms have came out. If we are providing assurance services to one client, will completely come out of non-audit services from that client. And now if as an individual chartered accountant I am having a small proprietary firm in Bengaluru, but to cater to the business, because everybody is having a hunger to grow, I have an associate firm which is running in Siliguri or which is in Kolkata, where I have been associated with. Now, a lot of these big conglomerates in India, whether it's Tata, Adani's, Reliance, now where you have been associated with another that you have made as a branch office, those partners might be providing some services as opposed to one of a conglomerate as providing as an advisory services. and we have been receiving a request from another division of the same conglomerate to provide a statutory audit service. Now, how do we look into that? So if we come to know first, the family chart of those big conglomerates are required to be maintained. In those scenarios, yes, we can go and ask the client itself, can we have your group structure? And before accepting any engagements, we have to go and ask all our colleagues or all our member firm or our branch people who are associated with, are we doing any services of assurance or non-assurance providing services? Sorry. To this group, if we are already entered into non-audit assurance services, then as a firm now we need to decide whether we want to continue with the non-audit services or we can stop that non-audit services and then get into an audit services. Some of the keys are there: documentation and independence assessment. So as a peer reviewer, when he comes into picture, he is going to ask us all those things. Okay, as a firm, what are the things do we have? So suppose a recent engagement we have accepted. So how do you say that you are not providing? So on this particular division, we are sure you are completely comfortable. We are not providing any non-assurance services. But what about the group structure? So there also we have to prove our independence. Any questions so far? Part B, independence for assurance engagement other than audit and review. So those was for more audit and review. Applies to other assurance engagement, compliance audits, sustainability reports. So identify the and address traits such as self-interest, self-review, advocacy, familiarity, intimidation. What do you mean by self-interest trait? Anyone means? Any thoughts? Means there is no right and wrong answer. Don't worry. We are here to interact and try to learn from each other and try to go back and implement at least 10%, 20%, whatever we learn on a particular day to go and keep growing. Self-interest. Yes, sir. Please.
Peer reviewer not derive any profit.
We'll come to peer reviewer later. As an PU we are talking right now, as an chartered accountancy in practice, or as an, because these are all applicable to a person in practice or to a person in service as well. Financial interest is like directly coming into picture. So self-interest is coming into picture when we are going and doing an audit and doing an assurance services. Now he is saying, you know, you are too good, you come and join us. So one of your senior audit engagement manager is getting into discussions. Now tomorrow, what happens, he is also interested, he will go and think. So it's a directly self-interest. Tomorrow there may be an audit matter. But because of this proposal being offered by the client, he may impair some of the issues which are actually required to be looked into with a different lenses. Self-review threat, will spend one or two more examples, we'll take in detail. Self-review threat is something like we are trying to do one advisory work, one valuation work. And that forms part of the financial statement in such like that tomorrow you have to go and do an audit of that as well. So what is happening, it's a self-review threat because you have provided that consultancy and tomorrow you are only going and reviewing that. Example, like practical example, if I have to take a tax opinion whether particular loss of slum sale or particular gain of slum sale, whether it can be adjusted with my business profit or my business losses. So we as a firm are providing that opinion, and tomorrow as an auditor, because it's a big adjustments which is sitting in my financial statement, I have to rely on that opinion itself. Yes, it is allowed to be set off or not. Just taking examples. So we need to define ourselves and we need to have boundaries. Anything which we are trying to do, because client is coming down as a request. As a chartered accountant, I always believe when a client is coming down and requesting for an support, we first, our heart goes to that. Yes, he is requesting, let me do now itself. Within 24 hours, I need to turn around to have my USP with the client. Okay, this guy is so wonderful. But having doing that, we just need to keep something in mind. And as we discussed, ethics is like a foundation of our profession. So we can't go ethically wrong. tomorrow if we don't want to go ethically wrong from the bottom of our heart, whatever we are trying to do, then we should be keeping all these policies in mind. Tomorrow, by mistake also, we should not overboard or we don't cross that line. Advocacy familiarity, it's like something very interesting. This is the last one, then we will proceed further. Advocacy, lot of times we engage. So I'm associated with chairman. I met him today morning, and now I start speaking about him. He is a very great gentleman. I met him. He helped me. So to our clients also, we have to be very, very careful in market. We don't take our client names itself. Somewhere it has been prohibited. Without the consent of our client, we should not put his name in any proposals itself. On our LinkedIn profile itself, okay, I am doing audit of so and so client. No, not required. Now you start going and advocating about your client. Arey, he is making this. It's too good. Suppose an ID Fresh. ID Fresh is procuring raw materials all from Tata Sampann. They are having the best quality, I can tell you. You should try, you should look into that. What we are trying to do? We are trying to do an advocacy for our client. As an auditor, what is the bar from the ICI? Skepticism. You can't lower your bar for skepticism. And now, by doing this, every person when we are meeting, we are trying to do an advocacy for our client. He is too good. They are doing very great. They may file for an IPO in next 1 year. You should look into that. You can't do. Lot of times it happens like familiarity and all. We are used to that client in a particular relationship. The mindset gels of two individuals, nothing wrong in that. I can be on the other side of the table and the other person, company CFO could be on the other side of the table. But familiarity and the mindsets align with each other. It doesn't mean that I have to take everything in good faith. There is no concept of good faith in audit when we are doing any assurance engagement. Yes, it's a good person when we connect with each other. But having said that, I can't sign it basis good faith because he is a person of integrity, and on good faith basis without doing a particular audit procedures which we are supposed to do, we go and sign off that. Another example which we keep on saying, like which must say eternal vigilance, which we talk about sometimes. And one practical example for eternal vigilance comes with a cost of independence. Eternal vigilance is a cost for independence. If we take an example of the borders right now, if we are living here and sitting here right now and independently, a lot of our shoulders are paying cost of that at the borders. Day in, day out, they are looking and protecting us so that we are sitting here and talking to each other very comfortably, independently. At the same point, if we just apply in a smaller lenses to an CA firm, sometimes we have to be too much of vigilance. It comes with a cost, but to maintain our independence, it's a must. Sometimes we have to forego some engagements which are coming up, or sometimes we have to ask somebody to do something else as well, though we cannot directly help him. Now coming to the peer review topic, so these are the key flavors in terms of if we see the ethics. I try to summarize in terms of what are the key flavors by going through the ethical requirements which we need to maintain. Before we jump on to the particular form, just as a key things, policies and documents. I believe the earlier speakers also have made a lot of emphasis in terms of documentation. Does the practice unit have written code of ethics policy aligned with ICA standards? So the policy for ethics which a firm needs to have has to comply with the ethical standard. And what are the ethical standards? We just saw there are 2 schedules. So it has to comply with smallest of an example which come across in practical day-to-day life. Engagement got over. The client is coming down and gifting a pen which cost worth more than 10,000 rupees. As a genuine gesture, a lot of time the client comes and gives that. what is our firm requirement? The firm requirement says, okay, if it is 2,000 rupees, up to 2,000 rupees on a special occasions in terms of festival season, if the client is giving you a gift, you are also reciprocating to the client, it's perfectly fine. But beyond a value, yes, you cannot do. And there was a very interesting thing which practically came to our life scenario. One of the colleague has gotten paid, and it was worth more than that value, but what the client has given a declaration, see, this is not a new one, I have used it for 2 days and then I am giving it to you, the value has been down. But ultimately, when the colleague reported to the board, when the firm is having such policies, after receiving, an employee is going back and saying it to the principal officer. I heard the earlier speaker has told there has to be a principal officer assigned to the ethics committee, assigned to the quality committee. So at those people, employee, even when they are receiving, they will go back and tell to the board, this is what I have received, let me know what to do. And when a peer reviewer comes into picture, if he sees, yes, it's not a policy, these are some practical examples which has happened. So after the audit engagement, client is saying, let's go 3 days to Goa. Or it's an outside engagement, outside city engagement, we have gone there for audit purpose. After audit purpose, generally the client keeps on telling you, okay, let's go, Delhi se Manali chalte hain, let's spend 2 days there. But as a client, as an service provider, chartered accountants, we have to continue to raise our bar for independence. We can't go in public having wine and dine together with the client. So at that time we have to deny, and then coming back to the firm and stating that fact, I have been offered, but governing the Bible or the principles, guidelines which our firm is having, I have said no to him. And I told him we can have lunch today together, but after that I have to go back, but I can't travel along with you outside. I may make an excuse because of some other burning issue or some other client work is there. Did not require to tell him in detail, these are my ethical standards, because one way the society is ruthless today. That client may be telling you, okay, let's come have wine and dine together, as long as purpose is getting fulfilled. Somebody says this client is very close to me. We say, okay, go ask him 20-25% year on year increase in fees. Let's understand whether he is giving. So let's understand the closeness in that manner. No, as long as his work is getting honored, he may not tell you anything. But we have seen the relationship which is going so strong. Those guys only come back and try to blame each other. Classic example, one practical example which we are seeing. Two friends so close to each other. Audit rotation happened. Each friend referring to him, okay, this client is rotating out of me, please go and have this engagement, I already had a word with him. After 5 years, the friendship situation goes down. One of the friend itself has made a complaint, how he can accept, I have not given the NOC. Now in such a good relationship where one friend is every boss, you go and take this assignment itself. We should have relationship. Having said that, we should have trust factor. But as an auditor or having carrying professional responsibility, we can't skip what we are supposed to do. The work. If you would have taken the documentation in that regard, yes, you are saying let's have the NOC in place. Now NOC is not there. If anybody, disciplinary committee, whether looks into, board looks into, or the peer review board when they appoint and reviewer looks into, it does not happen. But what he maintained, he thought at any point of time whenever required, this guy is going to go and give it to me. It's just a cakewalk. So situation changes. The one thing which is good for me, or the time flies which we always speak about, it's not the same time always. Now the time is good for me, tomorrow may or may not be. But at the same time, it's good or bad, what we are professionally carrying the responsibility, what we are supposed to ethically do, we should keep doing that.
So this independent declaration for the partners, for all clients, we can each declare it.
Yes, sir. So you asked the question. Can I have your answer also in the best interest of everyone? It's
I want your answer.
no, definitely will have. Now, independence. If you believe what we talk about independence, it's like
I am talking about the declaration by the party.
declaration by the partner, by the persons for each engagement it is required.
No, for in the year I got 10 engagement, all of us together at one letter for all the 10.
No. It has to be for each of the engagement at the starting of the engagement in terms of listed entities. The
Unlisted.
bar is unlisted also annually once you should have, but preferably you should have for each of the engagement separately along with the members. So maybe in one of an engagement we are working with team members A, B, C. Now when we are filling the form of particularly for that engagement, then we are filling. There is no independence form. Independence form when we are trying to fill it, it is engagement specific. So when we are working for client A, B, C, whatever services we are trying to provide, 4 people are working, so everybody is saying, okay, I am completely independent. A, in terms of financial relationship with the client, I don't have any financial interest in that. I don't own any share. Neither me, neither my close family members, neither my spouse or the persons who are dependent on me are holding any financial interest in that company. Business relationship, I may have a business interest with that. For that company, I may have a distributor agency which my close relative is having. So I can't work, one of the team member can't work because it is also having a business relationship with the client. So we have to keep independence, lot of other parameters, business relationship, financial relationship, no in-depthness in terms of money to be received, money to be given. Okay, let's talk about independence itself. Our independence checklist used and retained in engagement file. And this is such a basic thing, but if I come and top 5 matters which are coming in last 3 years, whether it's a QRRB review, whether it's a NAFRA review, or internationally if you go and see SEC reports also, definitely you are going to find independence issue. It's still in the top 5 issues which are there. Because lot of times we believe जब होगा तब देखेंगे, अभी तो कर लेते हैं. Sometimes that goes and says, we believe यार, why all these burdens is only for chartered accountants profession. Why we always say that, means we have been talking as a colleague, as a professions lot of time. We believe that as a chartered accountant we have been like binded by so much policies, so much code of ethics. The others are not doing. See bankers, see lawyers, they are very free. We feel that the grass is always green on the other side, but yes, but the rigor here in our profession is very high. As I say, when we do a signing off on any statement, a lot of people are taking decisions on that, whether it's an individual, whether it's an investors. Tomorrow those investors who are relying on your report only go and sue the firm. You guys have not followed due diligence what was required. So independence checklist has to be retained. Now does the firm comply with part 4A and 4B of the code? So how do you maintain your documentation in terms of when you are providing and particular channel 2 services for any client? Channel 2, when we say non-assurance services, have we not provided any channel 1 services which is like kind of audit services and assurance services to that particular client itself? Engagement, acceptance and compliance, I believe ki earlier also a lot of slides have gone into that. Engagement, our client acceptance and continuous decisions documented with ethical considerations. Now why ethical? We heard in terms of new client acceptance, one is NOC, we need to obtain, everybody understand. Now ethical comes into picture ki whether somebody is denying that work for a particular reason, and it happens ki you call that erstwhile auditor and try to understand from him, should I accept this audit engagement? He would say, see, if you are asking NOC, I am also professionally bound to give NOC. I don't want any non-compliance on my part, but I am warning you. And then he starts A, B, C, whether we should accept this audit or we should not accept this audit. And why I'm talking and taking this example, this is not a hypothetical example. In form 1, when we are going to fill, this is a specific question which we need to answer. Is there any engagement during this year period which we accepted as an auditor has any red flags? I don't remember the specific language of the form, but yes, this is what we have to answer. Now it's up to you how you want to report, what are the actions or mitigations which you have done. So having heard that, it may be that particular individual is trying to take grudge against that particular company or particular that individual. But again, what are the kind of pre-checks, what are the due diligences which we have done as a firm before accepting or before concluding we don't want to accept? Confidentiality and data protection. Yes, confidentiality of client information. Tomorrow, it should not get divulged in the public. So what are the safeguards which we have done? A lot of big companies are today under threat in terms of cyber securities after taking a lot of measures. So we are not spared with. Cyber security threat is there to us as well. Mobile, if we are having client data tomorrow, if it goes out. And Data Protection Act also, like a few 7-10 days back, it has further been implemented. If some of our clients are having too many consumer data, it should not go out. How we are protecting that consumer data, it has to be masked before it comes to the auditors, or while auditors retain in their file, it is accessible only to specific people. A lot of times we have been getting requests from company in terms of payroll. Okay, payroll, I want to show it only to one person. I don't want to provide any data in that. Because of this confidentiality clause itself, these are the confidential data. The employee data, salary standpoint should not go out. Tomorrow my compete, if is having control of that data, he may start poaching people from my business itself. Training and awareness. So what kind of training? What is the periodicity of the training? So here when we are talking about training, it's not only the technical training. What is an ethical training in those parts? What would be the content of that ethical training which we are trying to tell, okay, somebody should follow. So whether our people have been provided with an opportunity to have the ethical trainings requirement or not, ethical training compliances, yes. Now either you can have firm policies, this is what is there, small videos, small practical examples as a firm training program, or you are calling one speaker to speak and talk about that. In some of the larger firms, independence training compliance is a quarterly affair where training compliances have to be done. Then there are questions and answers to justify that the other person have actually gone through that training because he has passed by answering the correct questions. And then comes to like monitoring and review, whether financial independence, which sir asked at the first thing, whether everybody is financial independent. When we are filling this form, can I fill one form for the whole year? It has to be engagement specific. More closely to say and to demonstrate that we are practically doing that. At one point of time, if I would be a reviewer, if I just need to counter, don't take me otherwise, you have filled this form today at the beginning of the year on 1st April, all these my clients are independent, let's have all the persons sign this. 3 months, you only took that example, we give the training and then the person leave after 3 months, 6 months. Now there is a new person coming into picture. Whether he is independent or not. How do we know?
No, in that case we get problem.
Sorry sir?
So now existing partner, in the mean we are getting it. Whenever new partner comes, we take it from the new partner for
Yes.
other things. For
Yes.
more.
Not only the new partner, for below senior people and for all the employees of the company as well. Tomorrow, for a listed entity, maybe an MSME listed
Okay,
entity
declaration.
itself. Yeah, declaration. Declaration, but are we having all the things in place? So ICI is also having a form. If you go to the peer review website and go to other non-assurance sector also, other documentation sector also in ICI, it comes with a basic template. So if we go and implement that also, it's more. We'll come to the form for ethics specifically, and there we will talk about little more in terms of each line item, how we can deal with that, what kind of documentation we can build around that. Reporting and enforcement, monitoring and review, I will take 1 minute further to talk about. So how do we review? Just signing that 10 form is more than enough, because we can show, see, he has declared he is independent of that. What else do you want? How do you know the client on which he is working on, he is not buying the shares of that? So as a firm, do we have a process to request each of the individuals to give their financial declarations? And nowadays, like a lot of forms are coming into picture. I may have one demat account in Zerodha, another with Kotak, and the third one with ICICI Bank. And when the firm is asking, I am giving my Zerodha bank account only, but where I am making this financial interest, I am having with Kotak. So in fact, a lot of firms have raised this, and then there are forms which NSDL and CDSL are giving a consolidated report whether you are having 19 demat account. This is service provided by the government itself. You go and register with your mobile number, with your Aadhaar, ask that person to download that CAM report and submit it to us on quarterly basis. Whether he is having 50 demat account, it will all get consolidated and it will be submitted. Now, those things have to be picked up at some intervals as per the firm policies reviewed, and then say that, okay, nobody, this is how we are monitoring, this is how we are reviewing. What happens if any exceptions comes out? That is also there in our policies. Whether the firm is having zero tolerance policies for that, whether there is a penal consequences for that if somebody has been found enlisted, whether there is a reporting implications for insider trading which has to be reported to the central government, or we have the responsibility to go back and give these disclosures to the audit committee of the listed entities. See, we have found one of an anomaly, one of the person who was working on the engagement. We apologize for that, but yes, these are the actions which we have taken against him. Tomorrow, otherwise, if you try to hide that incident with the client, and client comes to know through print media, he may perceive that the principal of the firm has also been involved in that, because immediately that guy will go into print media interviews. This is the matter which I have already explained it to my partner. Today the print media is so fast, and you can't control. After doing all the correct things, sometimes we find it, why I got into this fishy thing. What I am done wrong. Still I am stuck here. So if we try to hide something and try to manipulate, it's very difficult. Today or tomorrow, once it comes out, then the whole integrity goes down. And just imagine, what about other clients? When it gets flashed, the other clients will also believe in that manner, yes, this guy has been doing in that manner. The whole brand reputation of the firm goes down. Any questions so far? Then we will go into the practical aspect of this Form 1. Okay. Has anyone filled these forms, or we all are here to apply for peer review certificates? Or maybe we have applied but I have not taken individual as a responsibility to fill the form. Okay. So the first section, so I would give a brief. So there are 5 sections. So, and each sections are having sub bullet points or sub questions to reconfirm what we are trying to say, whether we are doing it correctly. And this is a form which is not required at the time of peer review. This is the form which we need to fill and give it to the ICI online itself. Tomorrow we cannot change. So when we are filling this form, whether we have this or we don't have this, accordingly we need to respond. And what is the response which we need to give? Whether it is yes, whether it is no or not applicable, if you can see this. So first is, what are the first procedures does the PU have in place for ensuring that the personal adhere to ethical requirements, those contained in the code? designated independence and ethics partner who is responsible for all aspects. Basically, it is asking whether for the quality A and for the ethics, who is a person responsible in the firm who has been assigned with this responsibility to look into. So just going back to the previous example where we are saying ethically nobody is buying those shares in the company in which they are interested. Who is reviewing that? Who is having the responsibility to review that? If some exception comes in, what are the actions which has been taken? Who takes those decisions? Now, is the partner same as QC partner? So it may be possible that the quality control partner, who is a quality control partner? Let's understand. Quality control partner is a partner who is looking into the operational sides of the business. As an CA firm, what is my operations to do audit engagement? So what is a quality control partner responsibility is, he needs to establish as the new regulation comes into picture, okay, what are the audit procedures which we have to do in respect of this requirement? MSAB, new disclosure requirements have came in. So the quality partner is ensuring that this is a training which has to be given. He is flowing down to a lot of operational procedures which are required to be maintained, which are required to be followed by the team members, and it has to be documented in such and such manner. Now ethics also, maybe if he is doing, whether it is not too much of work, that is why the form is asking, is the person same who is doing the QC? Suppose even if you have assigned, why the question is being asked? This is more of a qualitative aspect which they want to check whether it is for the namesake or if the operational person, quality control partner itself is managing the ethical part as well. He is having so much of bandwidth to do that. Then who is looking into the clientele aspects? Has the PU established a system of identifying all services performed for each client and evaluating whether any of those services impair independence? Now, this we took an example of Adani and Reliance, and where it is more vulnerable, where we are having tie-ups with a lot of other cities chartered accountants. Because day to day we are not connected with them, and we only ask them when we are having a close engagement on that particular location. Now, how to deal with that as a policy, as a procedure, we need to understand. And peer review, I believe Ayush and the other speakers would have definitely spoken in that regard. The peer review certificate which we get is an FRN basis. So it's for one firm for the one registration number. Same registration number may be used 10 locations on pan-India basis or 20 locations on pan-India basis by the same. And when the peer review is happening, it's not only for your location for the HO, it is including for all the branches as well. Now collating data point for one location and for other locations, it's quite tedious. First is we can have, okay, what are the engagements which we are doing ongoing basis. There is a portal where somebody is managing this activity to say which engagement we are already doing. Then can we accept the other engagement as a firm policy? What is the policy which we are having in place in compliance with section 144 of the Companies Act as well, which prohibits accepting certain services in case we are engaged in auditing services. So another policy has to be framed, how you will monitor. Today on the historical data, if you need to start with, you know who are the members of those branches as well, and you can always download their UDMs and then to understand is there any conflict which is going on. But that is for the past. How you are going to do that for the future, that policy needs to come into picture, that monitoring process needs to come into picture. Real-time basis, the things which are required to be updated by each person needs to be. So first question which we ask, who is an ethical partner, managing partner, who is responsible for compliance of ethics in the firm. And then the second thing comes into picture, how we are having a problem statement in front of us. See, peer review, we always say it's kind of an open book question. Answer is like how much we prepare, it's an open book exam when the questions are already there. Any peer review is going to come for review, he is going to see that, then he is going to see the answer. The answer would be yes.
But what is an underlying documentation which we have done? Are we able to demonstrate that with two examples recently when we have accepted any engagement? Yes, we have checked with all the 5 branches in writing, in communication. Are you engaged in any of the services providing to this group under channel 1 or under channel 2? Then they say yes, we can't, independent, we are not providing, and post that only have accepted the services. Does the PU regularly update itself with the changes in profession, ethics and independent standard requirement? Yes, any change in the regulatory framework, either in the under ethics framework, it has to be regularly communicated. What checks are put in place to ensure that all the persons follow the independence and ethics policies of the PU? Now, the best thing is how do we demonstrate we are doing? As a policy, we are good in audit from day one, from our articleship period. We understand the power of sampling. When we pick up certain samples, we test that, we extrapolate that assurance whether it is positive or negative onto the whole samples. So that is again here as a policy PU, we need to implement the process of testing that, documenting that, basis the result, taking corrective actions as well. Okay, the second point is which of the following checks does the PU put in place to ensure that the independence required are communicated to its personnel? Now, one thing we are asking, are you independent on a particular engagement which you are being plotted to work upon? The second thing, as a firm, are we telling him these are the firm clients on which you cannot invest? So on the day of joining itself, there is a portal in the firm website or internal website which an employee post joining can understand and access, and he sees that the firm is having this many number of engagement, this many number of clients, in which any member of the firm, either it's a principal, senior or junior, can't invest in those firms. And that person goes back and checks his Demat account and his wife's Demat account and came to know this is already invested by my wife, or my wife got this since my father-in-law has gifted to her at the time of marriage. Now this is an engagement which this firm, this person has also joined. That time he has to go back and give a declaration, and the firm policy says okay, you don't need to dispose of, you have taken this prior to, there is no sensitive information basis that you have already purchased this share, but now you may have access to this sensitive information. So unless and until, so this will be in hold period, you can continue to hold in your Demat account, but you can't sell it off in compliance with the ethical and code of ethics. And some of the firms may aggressively take a position and say okay, you have, but okay, next 5 days please dispose it off. Tomorrow that employee may think I don't want to sell it off, let's leave the company itself. But yes, as a firm, whatever the policies and procedures which we define, we have to continuously demonstrate to a reviewer that actually it has been implemented. Implemented, it's like a communication which has given to the employees, then seeking feedback and inputs from those employees and keeping it in our repositories. Then the third thing is on a sample basis, taking some samples and doing a dip test check basis to understand whether it has been followed or not. Any changes in the listing, new clients have came in, that has to be further updated on regular interval. Reminder to the persons, are you complying with, please provide your feedback in terms of where you are having a financial interest. So quarterly seeking the information from the personals as well, where you guys have invested. Again, coming down to which of the following policies, procedures and the safeguards of the PU in place to mitigate threats to its independence. And we discussed on some of these threats earlier. One is like self-review threat, then how we are mitigating the advocacy threats. Can the PU demonstrate the same? So suppose advocacy threat, how as an PU you will demonstrate? Advocacy, we just discussed it, talking too much or too positive for any particular client. Now you don't know as an PU, and this is an ethic partner who has been in charge with this responsibility. Now there are 70 interns who are working in the firm, and there are like 100 plus semi-qualified or chartered accountants which are also working. Now approximately 200 people, now this guy is coming and sitting and asking peer reviewer, no, we have a policy, we have communicated. But the specific question, can you demonstrate the same? Demonstrate means how we will demonstrate. So there is only one thing which is there to demonstrate. Key, there is a policy of the firm which has been communicated, seeking feedback from each of those individuals on a quarterly basis, talking, having a role play or having a practical training session around that and keeping that in mind. Sometimes in the lift itself that PU partner has heard somebody is talking certain numbers of particular client which he should not talk in public and all. Took that example, had a small positive meeting within the group without taking the name basis person A and B, we should not do. Calling that person, putting a note, we heard him indirectly doing, we have given him a warning, give an individual that email. Those are the documents which are going to prove as an PU, not as an individual, as an PU, yes, we take those things very strongly and we implement that. It's more on the safeguarding of the threats. Then the fourth is like established regarding the threats of its independence. I believe independence we have discussed in detail. Then the things which we discussed, gifts and hospitality, yes. Audit rotation, how do you confirm rotation? What are the international standards? International standard says 5 years. In European it says like 7 years, US it's 7 years, in Europe it's like 5 years. Now audit rotation came into picture in India with the Companies Act introduction 2013 when it came into picture. Earlier it was like 25 years the same auditors have been doing. There has been a familiarity threat. Now it is going on. In the same firm, when the partner should rotate out, when the senior should rotate out, international standard says senior within 10 years, and Europe and US it's like different 5 years and 7 years. Practically a lot of big firms in India who have been like 4th generation, 5th generation firms in India who have been there since independence itself, they are also implementing that policies, because as an PU it never matters. If it is within the firm whether person A signs or person B signs, and sometimes we always say that it's always good after a period of time somebody looks into a particular thing with a fresh eye. If I have to do the same work today and tomorrow and day after tomorrow, sometimes I feel like it's a monotonous kind of thing, and I leave or lost the zeal to go inside and to drill that and to understand things more crisply and clearly. So sometimes it's like good also from a PU perspective, a fresh eye is coming into picture and looking into. Definitely he may take some more time. I believe we are running out of time. So these are the forms which we need to fill, each of the questions when we are filling. Does the PU or a network as a good and healthy practice make a disclosure of the payment received by it or other services through the medium of a different firm, which is said PU of a network? So any amount which we are receiving from our network and paying to the network is also required to be disclosed. Website has been following the principle or the guidelines. Again, any regulatory review, if your firm has gone through, what are the results of those regulatory review? First is whether it has happened or not. Definitely when the peer reviewer coming into picture, he may come and ask. As per the Code of Ethics standard, now before accepting any engagement, in case if there is a disciplinary action which is open to against any of the member of the firm, partner or to the firm itself, it has to be disclosed in writing to the company which is going to accept our offering. So it should not be hidden. Any disciplinary committee, any matter which is ongoing, which is yet to be concluded, any engagement when we are accepting, that client should or must be aware of what are the pending matters, where the matter it is, and a brief description of the matter. Last slide, probably. I just thought practically would like to just leave a glimpse what are the current issues which are coming into picture, and the genesis of that is like SQC1. Since morning you would have been hearing in first 10 minutes SQC1. SQC1 is what we go and check for the client. Now it is coming and asking, some other fellow chartered accountant is asking for my firm itself. So he asks, okay, what is the policy? We go and explain the policy, but now the policy has to be documented, A, then it has to be communicated to those individuals in terms of to prove implementation of that and how the monitoring and review is happening. So if you see, ethical requirement is one of an top 5 which is coming into pictures in terms of review. So the topic is little more subjective when we talk about, but when we go and sit with the code of ethics and in the peer review manual also, when you have to go and answer this, just keep the peer review manual handy and see. The peer review manual is very helpful in terms of guiding us how to answer. And as we discussed, the lot of templates are there in the website of ICI. We can always go and refer from there as well. Engagement, performance monitoring, human resource is more of in conclusions. Any questions so far? Happy to take before we wrap up this session. I hope. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful session. I request members to give feedback on the QR code. On behalf of Bangalore Branch Managing Committee member, I request Chairman Manjunath Handel to present memento to the speaker. We will break for tea and reassemble at 4:45 for the next session. Thank you.